Good morning, grinders. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD. BlenderHD. You want to follow me on Twitter? And it's Friday, June 7th. We'll be taking a look at tomorrow's UFC Louisville card. 14 fights on the slate. Big card here, so hit those thumbs up buttons. You know how much I like the thummy thumbs here in the morning. Give me those thummy thumbs. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Later in the day, we got MLB, Grinders Live, 5 o'clock Eastern, followed by Crunch Time. You get all your weather updates from Roth, all the breakdown of the slate. So if you're into MLB, tune in later. But since it's MMA, joined by multiple live finalists, even though you did, John, last week, you did the reverse thing. You went to the live final, didn't place very well in the live final, but then you split first place in the main GPP for $66,000.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, I missed the live final. I was sick, and I wasn't supposed to do this show last week, but then I did it because I was just like, I was actually sick and not going to the live final, which was just up in New Jersey. But I didn't think like being in enclosed space on like a plane or train or suites was a good idea. But so unfortunately, I was actually really bummed about like missing the actual event. But I finished like 11th, which is probably the worst because 11th through 15th paid the same amount, and it was only out of 15 people in the live final. Like plays down from 100. But then I won the large field, and I was less than a point away from a 6-figure win in the 555 as well. But then basically only got my money back because there was a 4-way tie for first place. But I was watching the Islam score like tally up, kept going up, and it was still just like half point away from taking a solo first in the high dollar contest. But it is what it is. It was a big, hugely profitable night as a result of winning the large, super large field. And it was a stack of the second fight, which I don't always do, but it seemed like the card called for it.
We talked about it last week. I mean, we talked. Like I said, this is. I don't know if any underdogs win, so I'm like, I don't think it's. I typically don't do it, but it ended up working. I thought it would be better in smaller field. Then the weird thing is, your live final lineup, it didn't stack the fight, but your large field lineup that won did.
Oh no, I sucked the. I
stacked it in the live final. Okay. So had you come in only 11th?
I put in basically 2 losses, like because I stacked the second fight, so I knew one of those fighters was going to lose, and I went with Joe Selecki, and my thought process was that Selecki was super cheap, but he was that fight was favored to go the distance. So I'm like, well, he could put up a decent score, a lot of grappling in a 3-round loss, right? If it goes all 3 rounds. He went all 3 rounds without doing anything. I think he scored less than
points, right? I mean, he was smothered. I mean, essentially, right. He's like, oh, he went 15 minutes, exactly what you thought. Where's my 30 or 40 points? And you're like, right. oh, he's on the bottom the whole time, like for 14 minutes. So like, no points.
May as well have gotten knocked out in the first round, in the first minute. Right. he put up like 3 points. So that went poorly, and I think I had Andre Lima. And I was really deciding between, I think Lima was 8,600, and the female fighters, she's escaping my name, or did her name's escaping me, was 8,700.
Eileen Perez, right? Because I played more of her, and I played a bunch of Lima, and Lima won, but I mean, for 50 points, I mean, that really wasn't. I mean, he won. He didn't get bit. I mean, that's the positive.
I pretty much knew that I was going to have 2 losses, and so when my first win was like 50 points, okay, this is not going to go well. I actually kind of tuned out the live final after the first 2 fights, because I think Lima put up 50 points in a win, or 50 something points in a win, and then I was deciding, as I think a lot of people were, maybe between the $86 and the $8,700 fighter, and then when Eileen Perez put up a huge score, I was that's well, I'm done. And I was deciding between like basically Jocelyn Edwards and Selecki for like a low for a low dollar, like potentially high scoring loss, and Jocelyn Edwards put up more points than Lima did. Jocelyn Edwards in her loss put up more points than Lima did in her win. I was like, oh, I made the wrong decision at those 2 points, which were my 2 big decision points. So, well, that's gonna start paying attention to the large field contest now.
Okay, let's talk about tomorrow. 14 fights, UFC Louisville, which is where I am, and it should tell you how apex level of a card this is. That UFC, this is like the first time they're here in Louisville since I've moved here, and so that's like 14 years or something, and I'm still not going because the cheapest seats are at $70, and they're in the 300s, and like I don't see I might as well watch from home. If it's going to be a main event of Imavov Cannonier, I'll spend my 7 hours at home rather than pay $10 for a soda or something, and people will be this tall or whatever. The seats that are closer are like $1,000, and it's like, I don't know who's paying that. They're not going to have a sellout, and I predicted that a while back when they announced it, because Louisville is not a big event. There's a reason why there's no like professional major sports here, and a lot of concert tours don't go through here. People here in Louisville, they're pretty stingy with their wallets when it comes to premium events, right? They don't mind going out to bars, cheaper stuff, but whatever. It'll be in the Yum Center, about 15 minutes away from me. Looking at this card, I like DFS. I think, John, would you agree? This may be a better DFS card, like more interesting than a like watchable card, like in front of the television.
Yeah, it's a little bit of quantity over quality. So we have 14 fights on the card, and I think looks like they just finished weigh-ins, and I think all 14 fights are still going to be on, which is great. I think it's just we haven't had more than 14 fights on the card this year, and this is only the third 14 fight card. So good number of fights. Main event probably going to go the distance, or at least it's about even money to go the distance. It's interesting. It's an interesting DFS card. There's nothing that really stands out. Like there's no mispriced fighters. So many fights you would think that maybe there'd be, oh well, this fighter, the lines really moved a lot since the prices were set, so this fighter's got a ton of win equity. I don't think there's anything really like that. So it makes it a difficult card to break down, but it makes it interesting for DFS.
Right, and there's only one huge favorite on the slate, and I'm not even sure if he's very good from a DFS standpoint at his price. We'll talk about that. But the contextual variables of the slate, especially if you're playing large field GPPs, what lineup was more likely to be optimal? What does that optimal lineup look like? Larger card means that there's 28 fighters to choose from. You're probably going to need finishes. I mean, from a ceiling perspective, that the win equity on fighters is less important than the ceiling of fighters. So, getting a 7K win at 68 points, not as important on these cards as opposed to an 11 fight, 12 fight card. And also the spreads of the fights, outside of Brad Katona at minus 625. I mean, yeah, in the 9K range, we have like 2-1 favorites, 3-1 favorite, maybe a 3-1 ish favorite. Kind of everyone's in play. I mean, maybe not Jesse Butler, but I mean, we could talk about that. And the fights, especially in the mid range, are much closer. I think this is a slate where if you left 1,000 on the table, that's not bad. I think there are paths for multiple underdogs to win. Remember, it's also these are lower quality fighters. I mean, it's not a pay-per-view card. So the efficiency of markets may not be the greatest. So someone may be a 2-1, 3-1 favorite and then look like they should have been a 5-1 underdog because the variance is going to be much higher with less experienced fighters. Let's start with the main event though. Nasruddin Imavov, 8,600. Jared Cannonier, 7,600. Inside the distance lines aren't great for a 5-round fight. Plus 210 for Imavov, plus 290 for Cannonier. These guys are not necessarily known for volume. They're not necessarily known for grappling, really, either. The thing is, normally I would say on a 14-fight card, like, it's a bigger card. I mean, you don't need the main event. I mean, like, this is like a classic. You don't need the main event, but at the price points, going 5 rounds in the mid-range is still useful enough that, I don't know. I think when our Sims come out tomorrow, early tomorrow, and we always love using the Sims here at RotoGrinders. If you're a premium member, you'll get those. I think the Sims will be fairly high on the main event being optimal, but not like absurdly high. But I don't know which way I go here. I'm not sure what the field. I think this main event won't be like maybe as owned as other main events. It's hard for me to get a sense here of what to do. Like, if as a heuristic, if I was only building one lineup, would I choose to include the main event? Would I choose not to include the main event? My natural inclination is to not include it. But what say you? Because the price point, it's if this was like 9,000, 7,200, then I could talk about, okay, I could not play this. But in the mid range, getting 90 points from Cannoneer or like 100 from Imavov on a slate where a lot of these mid-range fights are also look like they may go the distance also. 5 rounds is better than 3 rounds.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good main event for DFS. I think it's a good but not great main event for DFS. The guys aren't always the highest volume, but they do have some high volume fights in their history. Like Jared Cannonier's put up 150 points. And Cannoneer does actually have pretty good win odds for 7,600. So I'll probably have more Cannoneer than Imavov, but I think it'll be close. And I think we're showing them like 36% owned and 34% owned. And I think I'd probably be over the field on those numbers. And not dramatically over the field. I don't think it's something where, you have to absolutely like jam this fight in and consider stacking it in tournaments or anything like that. But I think it's good enough. And it's in the midpoint of the price range. And so it is, if let's say the line was lopsided, like Imavov was a minus 200 favorite, and so that he was in the 9,400, 9,300 price range, it'd be like, I don't think he's going to necessarily put up a super high score that you need to have. So he might get priced off the winning lineup. In the price in the mid range, yeah, I agree. And there's not a ton of fights. It's not like we're going to get finish after finish after finish. We'll probably have some surprising finishes, and there are some fights that are probably going to be within the first round or two, within the first 2 rounds. But yeah, I think it stands out as like you can probably get 5 rounds of decent enough volume that there's a good chance that it lands on the winning lineup.
And on a 14-fight card with a fight like this, there's no way that I'm stacking that in GPPs. I mean, cash game, sure, yeah, okay, you plug in both guys and then you fill out the rest of your lineup. But this ain't like last week, where like it's quite possible that no underdog wins and Cannoneer like it's I don't see I'd be more shocked if no underdogs win than if like 6 of them won. Right? I'd be right. This is not the slate where a losing fighter probably makes the optimal lineup. So stacking, I think, is
there's just so many fighters.
Right.
There's something like there's 28 fighters, and we have one major like lopsided line, but other than that, you've got a bunch of 2-1 favorites that are probably going to win. But when you've got like 13 underdogs that are about 1-2 to win their fight, like you're going to have a bunch of them win, and so yeah, you're probably not going to have to stack the main event.
Let's talk about the most expensive fighter on the slate, Brad Katona, 9,600, minus 625 favorite over Jesse Butler, who probably shouldn't be even in the UFC. His inside the distance line is only plus 155. He's not. I mean, Brad Katona is not really. Is he really a finisher? I mean, I don't know about you, but I get the sense with the ITD line that like puts him at like 8th on the slate, like 8th best ITD line. I wouldn't be shocked if our Sims come out tomorrow and his optimal rate is like single digits, possibly. The other side of the spectrum to this, and as I point this out often, when people compare like ITD lines only, like to me, there's a difference between, and we'll end up talking about this Marquez Reese fight in the middle. That's probably going to be gone in 60 seconds type of fight, because there are some fights that are like that, and there are some fights where it's like this is the going 3 rounds is like minus 500 or something. When a fight is so lopsided, sometimes that, like, even though like Katona is not like a finisher, like if Jesse Butler does not even deserve to even be inside the octagon, I mean, it could the higher the win odds are, sometimes these fights end up being just maulings. Like even though the favorite is not like some great fighter, just that the opponent is just so bad that Brad Katona could just whip his ass for 3 rounds and score 130 points. Maybe that's not the probable outcome, but I don't want to dismiss a $9,600 guy that's a 6-7 to 1 favorite in that scenario. But I'm just showing one side of the ball that I think we both agree much less likely for him to be optimal at that price.
Yes, I was thinking for the Sims, I was guessing 10%. And there's the $200 gap doesn't help between him and the next highest fighter. The fact that the next highest priced fighter is Bruno Ferreira, who has been high scoring in the past and has very good inside the distance and first round finish odds, doesn't help. And yeah, Katona generally hasn't been high scoring in the past. If you listen to the Ground and Pound podcast later, Liam has a surprise in this fight. I mean, he's a Jesse Butler fan, at least relative to the odds.
Really?
Yes. So, and I'm probably not going to go there, like large quantity. I'd probably just, large field contest, right? I think Jesse Butler's got a chance. But I kind of agree. It makes sense. Like, what is really the difference between Jesse Butler and Brad Katona? I mean, Jesse Butler just made the UFC, I think fought Jim Miller and got just starched in the first minute of the fight, if I recall. I think it was first or second punch. I think it was probably the second punch. But I don't know that the difference between Jesse Butler and Brad Katona is so big. I will be over the field on Jesse Butler. I think there's a chance that some of these really low priced fighters just see very minimal ownership, and so one of them's going to win. Somebody, I would guess that somebody at 7,100 and below wins their fight, just by the odds. So and they're all going to see very, very minimal ownership. So I'll probably be over the field on Jesse Butler, with the caveat there that I think he's got like a 1 in 6 chance of winning the fight. So you're probably not going to have like 40% of him or anything like that. But I think you should own Jesse Butler at about his win odds. And I don't think that, that would currently be about double his projected ownership. And not a fan of Brad Katona on this card. I mean, I don't think Katona will necessarily be that highly owned either. I think people will realize his odds of getting a finish just aren't that high, and his price is prohibitive at 9,600. I think that's more than Makhachev was last week. So, I don't think people will go to Katona in huge quantity, but I think he'll probably be about 20% owned, and I might be under that mark.
So I talked about fights that we're more likely to target versus fights that we're not really looking to target. I mean, the number one on the list, especially because it's in the mid range, Julian Marquez 8,300, Zach Reese 7,900. It's virtually a coin toss, right? Marquez is minus 135 favorite. They both have inside the distance lines a plus 115. They both have about 30+% chance of winning in the first round. How much of a priority is this fight? And I also want to talk about the Miguel Beza Punahele Soriano fight, because I think that's another one that is favored to end inside the distance. Beza is 8,700, Soriano is 7,500. The only issue I have with that fight is that fight is much more likely to be a just stand-up fight. That, like, if I could see Soriano knocking out Beza, and I could see Beza knocking out Soriano. but I just feel like maybe the winner of that fight, even if it's like a second round, definitely a third round, that unless it's the underdog, like maybe it doesn't score nearly as well because of the fighting style. But at the price of 8,300 and 7,900, I mean, if there's a round 2 winner for 90 points, I mean, like at that price point, it's if you told me that I was guaranteed to get at least 90 points from the winner of this fight, it's hard for me not to put this in 100% of my lineups, right?
Right. I think it's going to be, and I think the fight will see some ownership, but I think it really should, and it may not see enough because I like these fights where both fighters are probably aiming for a first round finish. Like they don't have any intention of taking this fight to the second round, and it could go there. I mean, that doesn't always work. Sometimes things happen. Somebody could get a takedown or knockdown, and then there are other fighters on top, and it just controls him but doesn't put him out for the first round. But I agree, it doesn't. It's probably the fight that has the best chance of ending in the first round, but it doesn't have to because it's priced in the mid range. So I always think of it at the end of this card, we're probably going to have 14 winners. And I think the odds are that, the winner of this fight is probably going to be in the top 6.
I just want to break in. It's the UFC. We may not have 14 winners.
Right. Yeah.
Right. We have no contest. We may have someone parachuting in or something. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Biting.
We'll probably have 13 or 14 winners.
Right.
Draw, always possible. Who knows? But I agree. I think this is the best fight to target, or at least one of the best fights to target on the whole card. Is this the Zach Reese Marquez fight? Just because it should be action. There's no particular reason to think it'll be low scoring if it does go to the second round. If it does go to the third round, like there's no reason to think it'll be particularly low scoring. So at 8,300, 7,900, it's kind of like the perfect fight in the mid range. So that's a fight I'll be targeting heavily.
How about the Miguel Baeza and Punahele Soriano fight?
Yeah, I think that fight is up there as well. I probably like the Baeza side a little bit more. Just listening to commentary on the fight, but I agree. I think that's a good one to target, and I think that I can you can probably save some ownership right on like the fights like the Brad Katona fight, and then go to some of these fights that are just stylistically more likely to have a little bit of action. I think that's another good fight to target.
Another fight that from an ITD perspective is similar is Dustin Jacoby 9,000, Dominic Reyes 7,200. Jacoby's plus 125 inside the distance. Reyes is plus 265 inside the distance, which is a great number for a $7,200 fighter. But I mean, Dustin Jacoby typically fights in a way where it's not like high, like a 3-round decision from Jacoby typically is not going to score well, and you're not going to want that for 9,000. Dominic Reyes could knock him out. Jacoby could obviously knock Dominic Reyes out. Just that if it lasts, I mean, 9,000. I mean, a second round knockout is not going to be good enough. How much are you targeting this fight? Because I think Dominic Reyes may get maybe some outsized ownership just through the name value. I can't ignore that ITD line, but his floor is like nothing because like it's either he's gonna win by knockout or he's gonna die, right?
I'll have some interest in this fight. I don't think it's going to be outsized interest. I like the Dominic Reyes price, a lot better. I like the Dominic Reyes side a little bit better, just considering the price. I think Jacoby's got a really good, inside the distance and first round finish odds, but I'm wary that at 9,000, what if he doesn't get there and he's got really high ownership? What if he wins if he gets a low scoring win, it probably doesn't help you a whole lot. Whereas Dominic Reyes, probably any kind of win helps you. It doesn't help that he's on a 4-fight losing streak. Believe he's like doing announcing as well, which is something I never like, right? When the guy's like got another career path, then maybe getting punched in the face doesn't look so good as a career choice. I don't know if I'm going to be over the field on this one. Like, I think our current ownership marks are about right, but I think it could see higher ownership. And so I'd be more inclined to own this at what we've projected rather than what could be a little bit of a higher rostership marks due to the name value, due to the odds of inside the distance.
Well, let's talk about fights to avoid. I mean, I think there are three clear ones, at least based on inside the distance lines. One is Taylor Lapilus 8,900 versus Cody Stamen 7,300. Lapilus is plus 320 is the favorite inside the distance. We also have Andrea Lee versus Montana De La Rosa. That's an $8,500, $7,700 fight. And then we have John Castaneda versus Daniel Marcos. That's the $8,200, $8,000 fight. But both ITD lines are 350 plus. Are any of these fights, like from an ITD perspective, they seem like an avoid, especially like an $8,900 Taylor Lapilus. Obviously, having the underdog win helps you more, even if it's not the best score. But like I said before, it's a 14-fight card. If I'm looking to win GPPs, even that is not like help. I'd rather take a shot on a Dominic Reyes or a Soriano than, lock up 70 points from Montana De La Rosa or Stamen if they win or something like that. Unless you see these three fights differently. I mean, these are going to be lower owned. I mean, I think Lapilus will be one of the lowest. I think will be the lowest owned favorite on the card. And I don't think Andrea Lee and Montana De La Rosa, I think that may be one of the lower owned fights. I think the Castaneda Marcos fight will be owned more just simply because it's in that mid range and it's easy to lock someone in that spot, to fill out your roster. And it could be a low scoring slate and an 85-point win may be useful at that price. Do you see anything differently about these three fights? Are you looking, I know you're the type of person that you look at like Taylor Lapilus, 12% first round win odds, and you're like, well, I'm going to roster him at least 12% because of that.
Yeah, so I like the fights, the three fights that you mentioned. I like them in the reverse order that you mentioned them. I agree. So the Taylor Lapilus Cody Stamen fight is like the reverse of the Marquez Zachary fight, where like both fighters' style is to just go the distance, try to go the distance. Like so that doesn't make me feel good, right? Because there's nothing where it's like, oh well, one fighter is going to try to like get the other guy out of there early, but the other guy is going to try to like wear out his opponent's cardio. So it's a clash of styles. Like this one, they kind of have the same style, which is that they're not just slow paced. So like that doesn't instill me with a lot of confidence. And I think the two fights I'm most likely to avoid, because that's always a question on the expert survey, is actually the Brad Katona fight is probably one that I'm going to mostly avoid. Like I might have more Jesse Butler than Brad Katona, and try to be under the field on Katona. The second one I think is the Lapilus fight. Lapilus and Cody Stamen, just because stylistically they're probably not going to put up a bunch of points. The female fights, Andrea Lee and Montana De La Rosa, actually have like some interest in, because I think Andrea Lee's got pretty good win odds for her price. And I don't know, she does something in there, right? And there is a possibility like this turns into a mauling on either side. And I think just it being a female fight, I think it'll be like just a little bit lower ownership than some of the other fights in the price range, where it's got like at least a possibility of putting up a decent score. Like I think this fight has a better chance of putting up a decent score than the Lapilus Cody Stamen fight. So I think we've got Andrea Lee for about 15% ownership. I'll probably be over that. Like I think I could see myself going 20-25%. What was the
Castaneda and Marcos in the mid range?
Oh yeah, so actually I like this one. I think it's two somewhat high volume strikers. I don't think it's going to put up a crazy score, but I like the fact that it's priced in the mid range, and maybe like Castaneda a little bit more. It's basically I'll be paying attention to the line movement on this one, because there is some win equity on Marcos's side, and sometimes people take that too far. And so like Castaneda will say like no ownership relative to Marcos, so maybe you want to go because it's still a coin flip, right? So I might go a little bit heavier on the Castaneda side. I wonder if I can even write them up as Scroll Patrol's takedowns because Castaneda is technically the underdog. So yeah, watch out for that article later today. But yeah, I like the mid-range fight. I won't particularly look to be under the field on that one. I think we've got Castaneda at 12%, 13% projected ownership. I'll be over that mark. So yeah, I don't mind. Actually, don't mind that fight.
Let's take a look at the 9K fighters, and then let's take a look at some underdogs. In the 9K range, obviously, you say you're going to be under on Katona. We got Bruno. I don't think any of the 9K. We talked about Jacoby already. So essentially, we're talking about Ferreira, Rosas, Pratis, and Amanda Dos Santos, or whatever. Rayanne Amanda Dos Santos. Those are like the 9K options. If you don't play Katona, Bruno Ferreira is probably going to be the highest owned out of this bunch, but I'm not necessarily sure that it's going to be that dramatic. I think Ferreira will be the most owned, then Rosas, then will be like a gap to like Pratis, and then Randos. I don't know. I mean, like Puja Tomar. I mean, this could be a mauling also. These women's MMA fights. I don't think any of these four fighters are going to be less than 20% owned. And I think maybe Rosas could be like 30 and Ferreira like 35. If you're not playing Katona, I mean, Bruno Ferreira minus 225 inside the distance against Stolfus. And obviously Rosas, I mean, he's a kid, but we've seen him, against Ricky Tercios. He has obviously a very clear grappling advantage. And he could easily win with a submission in the first round. And I think that's the reason why they're going to be popular. Pratis and Dos Santos. Pratis probably is going to need a knockout with his fighting style, so he's kind of got 5 minutes for that. And Dos Santos, I mean, there's wrestling upside there, and it's women's MMA, and you never know. You never know. Minus 305 could look like minus 3,005. At some points. My natural inclination, because the field tends to undervalue them, is I kind of like Rayanne Amanda Dos Santos, just because I think she has as much upside as all these other 9K fighters, and she may just end up being the lowest owned out of the bunch.
Yeah, I think we're seeing it the same way. I if there were no prices and no ownership, right, I'd probably order the fighters in the way that they're salaried, right? Ferreira, Rosas, Prates, and Ryan Dos Santos. I do like Bruno Ferreira. He's got by far like the best first round finish odds in this fight. So I won't look to be under the field on him. Rosas can put up a bunch of takedowns. So I like those two. I probably do like Ryan Dos Santos more than Carlos Prates. Like Prates has decent inside the distance and first round finish odds, but he won't necessarily be super high volume if he doesn't get that first round finish. So probably like Ryan Dos Santos. I feel like the line's been moving in her direction, and we don't know a lot about Puja Tumar, but what we do know, like she doesn't have like a string of impressive wins prior to the UFC. Sometimes the UFC promotes fighters from different regions just because they're trying to capture a market. But like sometimes those fighters stink too. So right. So yeah, like what if like Puja Tamar just doesn't belong in the UFC at all? And Ryan Dos Santos, it could be a mauling, right? Like it could be a mauling. Line's been moving in Ryan Dos Santos' favor, and she probably won't see. There tends to be a little bit of a bias against female fighters that just is a result of they don't always have the power to crack a skull, right? So they they don't always have high finishing odds, and so that that does create some bias. But like Ryan Dos Santos could get a submission, right? Like, or she could get a knockout. Like, and what if Puja Tomar just doesn't belong in the UFC? And the Vegas odds and the line movement have been maybe indicating to us that even though we might not know who Puja Tomar is, that people who do know are betting against her. So yeah, maybe we want to be over the field on Ryan Dos Santos if other people are doing that, female fight bias.
Right, especially when people think of less KO power, but most fights even the men's are not won via KO; they're won by TKO when the other fighter isn't intelligently defending themselves, and we see that in women's MMA all the time, where some they get him down, they're on top, and ground and pound until the referee stops the fight. It's like, you don't need power in order to get a ground and pound finish. You just have to do it enough where they cover up and don't defend, and they give up at that point. So,
yeah.
So, and especially for the women's fights, more ground and pound, that's more significant strikes, right? As Mike would say, the pitter patter, right? You want that pitter patter right on the top.
Yeah, no, it makes a big difference, right? Like you see these fighters sometimes, they get a takedown, they get a win, and that's it, and they put up a low score. They get 5 points. It's in the second round, and that's 65 or 75, I guess. But then they don't really add a bunch of strikes when the fighter is just sitting there. And sometimes with fighters, it's the difference between, are they just doing the tapping, right? Those tapping, that's a strike. It's not a significant strike, but it's still 0.2 points, right? So they're just accumulating, 40, 50 of those, like, just taps. And that racks up a big DraftKings score sometimes.
Let's look at the underdogs. I don't think there's any underdog that I would be confident in. And I'm talking about underdogs that are underneath Cannonier. So, okay, so we're talking about, like, Soriano and below. I don't think I'm confident in any of them, but I would put my number one underdog as Denise Gomez at 7,400. I think Eduardo Mora is going to be fairly popular with her wrestling style, but it's not like she's not proven. Like, it's like she's going to be bigger than Gomez. She's probably going to wrestle, which means Gomez's floor will go down because if she's on the bottom. But Denise Gomez could, if she could stuff a takedown, she may be the. If you told me that this fight was going to be 15 minutes on the feet, it's quite possible the line would be completely reversed. That Gomez would be the favorite in this fight. So when you're telling me that a female fighter has a plus 235 inside the distance at 7,400 and relies on stuffing a takedown, I got to have more interest in her than, like, a Cody Stamen or a Puja Tomar or even a Ricky Tercios against Rosas. Like, I almost like her more than Soriano because I think maybe there's even more paths for her to win the fight than Soriano. She's not the cheapest at 7,400, but she may be my favorite. I mean, I know you said that I haven't listened to the ground and pound yet with Liam on Jesse Butler. I'm not sure if I do that. I'm assuming Butler isn't your favorite underdog to have a bunch of. But what are your thoughts about this range in general?
Sure. So when you're looking at the really low price range, there's not always a lot to love. I agree. Like, Denise Gomez has better than a 1 in 3 chance to win her fight, and I do think Eduardo Mora will be pretty popular of the female fighters because she's got a huge score in her game log, and like projections start to base stuff off that. She is grappling, right? I think DraftKings actually has fight props now, and she's even money for 2.5 takedowns. So I think that she will be a popular fighter, and I think she should be a popular fighter. I won't look to, like, avoid her because she's priced below 9,000 as well. But yeah, there is a possibility that Denise Gomez just goes out and wins the fight, and suddenly Mora's doesn't look so good. So yeah, I agree. I think Denise Gomez is a good underdog to target. I don't really like Cody Stamen at all. Dominic Reyes, 7,200. Decent chance to win the fight, so I think he's somebody you can look to. Puja Tomar is an interesting case because I think we've got her projected at less than 5% ownership, which I'm not sure I've seen a fighter projected for so little ownership. I'll probably be over the field.
She'll be higher than that. She'll end up coming in closer to probably 8%.
Yeah, but like that's double our projected ownership. So I will probably roster her at about 8 to 10%. Probably 8, at least 8%, which is double our projected ownership. So I don't want to speak if I end up doubling her ownership in my 150 set. That's a possibility. Somebody I'm kind of interested in is actually Dustin Stoltzfus at 6,800. So that's really cheap. Like, he's got about a 30% chance of winning the fight. That's according to the Vegas odds, like the implied probability. Like, that's not nothing. Jesse Butler is that's almost double Jesse Butler at just $100 more. And again, like the
Well, 200,
DraftKings,
200 more just to be.
oh yeah,
Just
200
like,
more. Okay. Oh yeah, 200 more. So
I
6,800.
don't think the 200 matters. That when you're
Yeah.
paying 6,600 to 6,800, it's both like it's cheap as crap, right?
Yeah, but so if you're betting the UFC props, Stoltzfus is favored to get a takedown, so minus 175 over half a takedown. So like if you really think he's going to get starched by Bruno Ferreira, like you could bet Stoltzfus under half takedown for plus money for like plus 130. So that's indicating Stoltzfus has a takedown chance there. And I think Bruno Ferreira is going to be one of the most popular fighters on the card. And I will have like a bunch of Bruno Ferreira. Like Stoltzfus is live in this fight, and that upsets everything, right? Like at 6,800, that allows you to do whatever else you want with your lineups, and you're upsetting all the Bruno Ferreira lineups. So I like Stoltzfus as one of the underdogs. Don't like Ricky Tercios as much. Like, I think Rosas has got a really good chance to win this fight. I think he's one of the he's super young, and he's one of these kind of more charismatic prospects from a region that maybe UFC is trying to target. So Raul Rosas just to win the fight. I guess that means I like him even at his betting odds, but not going to look to be over the field on Tercios. Charlie Radke. Yeah, I mean, if Radke wins the fight, he's probably putting up a pretty decent score. So,
I mean, Radke. I mean, isn't Radke in the similar type of spot as Stoltzfus? As like Ferreira and Prentice. I mean, obviously Ferreira has a bit better of an ITD line, but I mean, isn't similar types of fights, similar types of fighters that if Stoltzfus has a chance, like Radke has a chance to do pretty much the same thing, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think Prates will be lower owned than Bruno Ferreira, even though he's cheaper. I think Bruno Ferreira is inside the distance line is going to draw a lot of people. So I think you'll get more leverage on Stoltzfus. But yeah, I agree. I think Radke he's a live underdog. I mean, he's got again about a 33% chance, 1 in 3 chance of winning his fight. And Prates will see some ownership. So I think he'll be getting some leverage there. I like Stoltzfus probably a little bit more than Radke. But yeah, I think that it's a similar argument.
Would you be playing multiple of these guys? Would you be playing lineups that leave like 2,000 on the table and playing multiple? I mean, if there's a slate to do it, this is more of the better than last week. Last week it was I said if people are leaving money on the table, I think they're nuts. Right. This, I mean, would it be? It wouldn't be ridiculous to see 2 or 3 sub $7,600 fighters put up 100 points. Like Soriano to get a knockout. Gomez. I don't know about Stamen. Reyes, Radke, Stoltzfus. I mean, if you would pretty much need 3 of them to put up 100 points to leave 2K on the table. But all you need is 2 of them for 1K on the table. And especially when we have fighters, if Lapalus up there, a lot of these mid-range fights could end up being just 80-point wins, 85-point wins, that it's 2 9K fighters put up 120, and then there's 2 or 3 really cheap underdogs that put up 100. I mean, what are your thoughts as far as salary allocation for obviously large field and smaller field stuff? You're probably spending 49.5 and above, but how many of your lineups are going to really go decent amount of salary, and obviously you're going to get a lot more chances of being unique?
I probably won't look to leave a ton of salary on the table, but I think you can. I think it's a better card. Like you said, it's a better card to do that than, say, last week. You look at these fighters in about the 7,400 and below range that we're talking about. Most of them are about 1 in 3 to win their fight. So the chances 2 of them win their fight are about 10%. It's not terrible. So I think you can do it, especially for the large field contest. I agree. It's something you can definitely look at. I like a lot of the 8,200 to 7,600 fighters as well. So I'll probably end up with a good amount of those. I'm more likely to end up with a lineup that uses one of these super cheap fighters, one of the higher priced underdogs, and then target some of the mid range. Then go 2 of the super cheap underdogs, and then try to fit in the other 9,000 plus fighters that win their fight. Just because that's probably more of a result. I don't think the strategy you're outlining is like incorrect or like logically flawed. I tend to like the Castanedas, the Zachary's, Taigo Moises enough and kind of near as the 5-round underdog to use them more than some of the super cheap fighters.
Okay. I mean, it's do you do that and sacrifice some uniqueness versus like, I mean, getting a lineup, I mean, with 14 fights, getting a lineup that you're talking about in your construction may still end up being a lineup that's only duped 7 times versus playing a lineup leaving 2K on the table where you may be one of one. Your your probability is going to go down, but obviously when you win, you're going to win the whole thing. So it's just a matter of balancing the two. Obviously, some 150 maxers tend to skew to one side over the other, and I consider you more of the, I don't want to say chalkier, but you're a little bit more like me, that you aim for, like, if it's under 10, like, you're cool, you're fine. If the probability is high, rather than someone where it's like 150 lineups, 146 uniques, where if the chalk hits, you're screwed. I mean, if a 49-8 lineup with like multiple, 30% owned fighters win, your lineup portfolio is like minus 96% on the day, right? But when you win, you're obviously winning unique. You're a little bit your risk management is kind of in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. Where you see sometimes, you see people that you kind of know have super high bank rolls, and they are, they're kind of all in on Pooja Tomar, and they're gonna, she's gonna win 25% of the time, and nobody else is gonna have her, right? I'm probably not gonna do that. I'm probably gonna stick more with the lineups that use most of the salary, but it's a question of risk tolerance, not necessarily profitability, right? Like I don't, I like Stoltzfus. I think you make an argument for Aki. I don't love the super cheap fighters enough to put a couple of them in and leave like 1,000 on the table trying to be really unique. I'll aim for like splitting the first place prize with like 6-7 other people.
Well, you'll be talking about underdogs in your takedowns article, which will hopefully be coming out later today, at least by tomorrow morning. If you're a premium member, obviously join RotoGrinders Premium. Get it. You get a combo premium, you get everything. MLB, you get all of our projections, you'll get all of our ownership, you get Lineup HQ, you get Sim Labs, you get all of our tools, all of our premium content. Cheese writes every weekday. He writes like 1 million words on the slates for MLB. We got breakdowns for MMA. We got expert survey for MMA. We got the sim results for MMA. We got, obviously, John's takedowns article. You're hitting the nut stuff in other sports. So you're going to have that out later today. We also have the Ground and Pound podcast. Liam and Mike break down all the fights. And John, you're going to be on Crunch Time tomorrow.
Yeah, Crunch Time tomorrow. I wonder what time it is, because I think the fight kicks off at 5. I think we've been somewhat consistent at 3 o'clock lately, so we might just aim for that, or we might aim to go a little bit closer to lock, maybe 4. I don't know. But my schedule's open.
People will see the thumbnail on YouTube. You'll hit that notification bell to know when it goes live. And because I know there's also MLB Crunch Time going on later in the afternoon. It's always a weird schedule, but you will be on tomorrow with Mike to essentially break down the fights once again. And just in case we get, a pullout or something changes, a big odds change, or who knows, right?
Yeah. Just if people are setting their alarms, it looks like it's 1 o'clock. I think you're right. We have an MLB Crunch Time in the 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock range. So, I think we'll actually be on a little bit earlier at 1 o'clock.
Okie doke. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Give me those thummy thumbs. This is, I think, one of our only, we only do like 2 MMA shows as free content here at RotoGrinders. So help us out. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit the subscribe button, especially if you're new here. Join us in the Discord, rotogrinders.com/Discord. Join the MMA channel, right? Dane, Moneyball16 is always in there posting, when projections get updated, when fighters, get scrapped and everything like that, odds to finish stuff. He puts some statistic stuff in there as well join us here. And yeah, so the fights will be about 15 minutes away from me, and I'll be in my air-conditioned house watching them instead of from section 312, second from the back row for $70. Unless for some odd reason, I said at the time when they announced it that maybe I'll wait for like literally the morning of and see if I could find maybe like a $10 ticket on StubHub or something like that. Just like, who else is going to take this ticket? And maybe it's a 100 levels, where you're at least in the main bowl, and then I could go for $10.
I will say, like, DFS or UFC is one of my favorite DFS events to go to. It's like part of the reason I'm bummed to have missed the live final is that it's like if you play a baseball slate, but every baseball game just happens over the course of like 10 minutes right in front of you, for the whole whatever. But it can be a long day as well. But it can be entertaining to watch. So yeah, I'd if you get the chance for a cheap ticket, I'd take it.
Right. I said, to me, $70 is a cheap ticket for UFC, right? I've seen prices at UFC. Just that I'm not a big fan of sitting, where you need binoculars, essentially, especially for UFC. Because like I go to wrestling events, so I know it's a similar type of setup, and I know what it looks like from the 300s. And I'm like, yeah, I usually mostly watch the screen at that point. And it's like, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well stay home.
Yeah.
Especially for this card. To be fair, John, look at this card. Am I missing? What am I missing?
We'll see. Puja tomorrow. We did big unknown. So
okie doke. I'll be back next week as always, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern. I'm here talking about all things you're thinking about. Daily fantasy props and pick 'em on RotoGrinders Today.